You ever stop and wonder why, across every single culture, every period in history, humans are always looking for something bigger? Well, today we're going to dig into this really cool philosophical argument. It suggests that this search isn't just about superstition or fear of the dark, but maybe, just maybe, it's a deep internal need that's actually hardwired into us. All right, let's get into it.
So we're kicking things off with the big one, right? This is a question that's kept philosophers, scientists, you name it, busy for thousands of years. It really gets to the core of what it means to be human.
Really think about it. Why do we build these incredible temples? Why do we write scriptures and create all these complex rituals? What is the fundamental thing that's driving this universal impulse? This explainer is going to unpack a theory that looks for the answer not out there in the world, but deep inside of us.
Okay, so this slide sets up a really important contrast. On the left, you've got the usual suspects, right? The common explanations, that religion comes from being afraid of what we don't know or hoping for something after we die. But the theory we're exploring today, over on the right, it suggests something totally different, that the need for God is an internal necessity, something that just springs out of the very nature of our soul.
So let's get into the core of this idea. The argument here is that our spiritual drive isn't just us reacting to stuff happening around us. No, it's a proactive search, and it's guided by this kind of internal compass, one that's already pointing in a very specific direction.
And here it is. This is the key term for our whole conversation, the religious postulate. It's the central idea that our soul has these built-in laws and these needs demand a certain kind of spiritual something to be satisfied. It's not just a random wish, it's a fundamental requirement, kind of like our bodies need food.
This really frames it perfectly. From this perspective, religion isn't just a bunch of beliefs you decide to adopt. It's an active, relentless search. It's the soul out there, looking for something that is adequate, something that finally lets it feel a sense of peace and fulfillment. And that's the logical next question, isn't it? If this isn't just a random search, if there are specific requirements, well, what are they? What qualities does this spiritual object have to finally satisfy that deep, nagging need in our soul? And that brings us right to the heart of the argument. The theory breaks down this internal demand into 4 very distinct, non-negotiable spiritual necessities. So let's see how these build the case.
Just 4. 4 specific demands. And according to this theory, any spiritual idea that fails to meet even one of these 4 will ultimately leave the soul feeling unsatisfied, and it'll just keep on searching.
And here they are: personal, infinite, ethical, and knowable. You can think of this as the soul's checklist. So let's walk through each one of these to really get what they mean. First up, the demand for a personal object. The logic here is actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. See, the human soul knows itself as a conscious, personal being, an I. So for a real relationship, for any kind of real connection, it can't be satisfied with some impersonal force or abstract idea. It's looking for an equally personal vow.
Second, the soul demands something infinite. And why is that? Well, because human thought itself is basically boundless. We are constantly pushing past limits. We go from one fact to a bigger principle, from one scientific law to an even wider one. Our minds just naturally reach for the ultimate, the all-encompassing, the infinite.
And you can actually see this search for the infinite play out through history. Humanity started by worshiping these grand things in nature, like the sky or mountains. Then we tried to build these massive statues, trying to capture that feeling of infinity in physical size. Then we organized gods into pantheons with one top dog, like Zeus. And eventually, we moved to more abstract ideas, like fate or some kind of cosmic unity. Every step is another attempt to grasp something boundless.
Okay, the third demand is an ethical one. Now, the key point here is that once humanity gets the idea of a God who is fundamentally good and just, it's a one-way street. There's no going back. Any older, lower idea of a God who is cruel or random just becomes spiritually unacceptable. Our own moral compass demands a moral God to worship. It won't settle for anything less.
And finally, the fourth demand. The soul, as an intelligent being, needs a knowable object. You know, an unknowable God, as the source material puts it, is basically useless for religion. Religion isn't just about saying, yep, something's out there. It's about communion. It's about a relationship, about understanding. And for that to happen, the thing you worship has to be in some way knowable. Okay, so we've got our 4 demands: personal, infinite, ethical, and knowable. Now the argument uses these 4 points like a key, and it's looking for the one spiritual lock that it fits perfectly. And this is where the whole argument clicks into place. The theory suggests that the Christian concept of God lines up perfectly with each of the soul's 4 needs. It presents a God who is a personal thou, who is absolutely infinite, who is the ultimate ethical standard, and who is knowable because he chooses to be self-revealing. It checks every box on the list.
So, the conclusion here isn't trying to prove God's existence like some math equation. It's more subtle. It suggests that this idea of God resonates so powerfully with people because it fits the pre-existing shape of the human spirit. It feels true because it answers the very questions the soul was already asking. It's like finding the one puzzle piece that fits the empty space you've had all along.
So where does all this leave us? We've just walked through a really specific philosophical way of looking at this, one that completely reframes the whole debate about why people believe.
And let's be super clear about the takeaway here. This theory isn't about external evidence for or against God. Its entire focus is internal. It's an argument about the architecture of our own minds, suggesting that we are built with a God-shaped whole, or maybe more accurately, a set of specific requirements that only a certain kind of God can fill. Ultimately, it leaves us with this really provocative question, one that goes way beyond any single religion. It doesn't matter if you're a believer, an agnostic, or an atheist. This theory kind of forces you to think about it. Is our relentless search for purpose, for meaning, for something more, is that just something we picked up from our culture, or is it a fundamental, programmed part of what it means to be human?